Welcome to episode 87 of the Valley Sports Talk podcast. Look at us go, 2 weeks in a row. Well, I guess over 2 weeks because we posted the last one last Tuesday. This one's back out on Friday. We are gonna live record this, so we record this and then I'm gonna post it instantly. Today I think we just talked about we're gonna talk a bit about NFL. If you guys don't follow our Instagram, make sure you go follow it. We just posted yesterday our playoff picks, so we're gonna go through those, give a little bit why, and then we decided we're even gonna talk about the coaching carousel. There's a couple, there's at least I think 8 head coaches or seven now because the Patriots already um replaced Bellichek, but there's been a couple pretty big head coaches fired. So we'll talk about that, talk about maybe who lands where, stuff like that. And then if we have time, we'll talk a bit about the NHL, maybe give some mid-season thoughts, awards, stuff like that. So yeah.
So yeah,
So yeah. I guess we'll jump into the NFL playoffs. So they start tomorrow. If you guys are watching this right whenever it comes out, you could be watching it after, so you know if our picks are completely wrong or not, which they probably will be. They'll probably do the opposite of what happened between us.
most
So
likely.
tomorrow we have Cleveland and Houston playing at 4:30, and then we have a very cold game. It's apparently dangerously cold, is what I'm reading on Instagram and stuff like that. We have the Miami Dolphins, who will be a bit of a change considering they are going from Miami to KC. They play at 8:10. We both took Houston and the Dolphins. We both have the same picks for this, right?
Yeah,
So
I'm
we
kind of
both
nervous
went
though.
with the underdogs actually. Looking at the score, Cleveland's negative is favored -1, or they're favored to win by 1 point, and then KC is -4, so or -4. So we both took underdogs. Why did we take the underdogs? Or why did you take underdogs?
For Houston, I think it has a lot to do with it being a home game. They did play each other earlier in the season. Joe Flacco was in that game. CJ Stroud wasn't, and the Browns won it pretty handily. But again, CJ Stroud wasn't in. Um, I think the biggest thing here is just CJ Stroud doesn't turn the ball over, and if Joe Flacco throws one or two interceptions, I think that could be the difference maker in the game, um, especially with that crowd. So I think they're going to be excited to have playoff football back in Houston, and I think they're going to ride a win here.
Yeah, I'll agree with mainly what you said. I do think I could see maybe CJ Stroud having a shaky first quarter, being that he's a rookie, his first ever playoff game. There's going to be some nerves there. There always is in games like this. But like you said, I think the Texans were not, ex the fans at least, were not expecting to be in this position at this point in the season. So I think that I agree to the fact that it's in Houston will give them the favorite. I also don't. Like I saw this weird stat that Joe Flacco has never went 1-0 in the playoffs. So I think that's an interesting stat to sort of look at. Um, but with that being said, I'm still gonna ride Houston. I like the young guys. I think Will Anderson will have a big game. I think guys like Derek Stingley will have a good game. So I'm fine taking the Texans in this game.
Could set up a Lamar Joe Flacco matchup though if the Browns pull out a win, which could be something because I mean for the people who think the NFL's rigged, I mean if you look at the matchups, you got um what could have been Deshaun against his former team. You got the Lions and the Rams, the two quarterbacks that switch teams. Um, you got the Packers and the Cowboys, which could have a little bit of head coaching history. And then you got the Dolphins and the Chiefs with Tyreek, obviously. So there's a lot of matchups that would definitely benefit the NFL here.
Anyways, we're not going to go into conspiracy theories today.
No,
But
probably not.
moving on to the 8-10 game, we have Miami, Kansas City, which I think, even though it's going to be cold, I still think it'll be a very good game. Obviously, both these teams are pretty good. The Chiefs sort of have had a bit of a weird year. Mahomes hasn't been able to be really Mahomes, even though he still has been good. I'm going to blame most of that on his receivers. He doesn't really, like Travis Kelce had a down year. I mean, he is 34, so we kind of maybe didn't expect that, but it makes sense that he's sort of starting to sort of tail off as he gets to the end of his career. Obviously, his receivers, he didn't really have much. A lot of drops issues with Kadarius Toney and MVS. Um, so yeah, I went with Miami. just based off the fact that I think Kansas City's been too inconsistent this year with their offense. Their defense has still been good. Chris Jones has been good. Players like Justin Reed, Nick Bolton, they've all been great. But I just think that this Miami team is going to come out and going to take a quick lead. And then I don't think that the Kansas City offense is really built for a comeback. I think they're more of a strike first team, which I don't think they're going to do in this game.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I mean, the Dolphins are dealing with a lot of questionable injuries here, and the cold definitely isn't going to help that. So we'll see if those guys play like Raheem Mostert and Jalen Waddle. That'll be definitely a big
And they just lost Bradley Chubb, which is a big one.
yeah. So that would be definitely a kick in the wrong direction. But like you said, the Chiefs this year kind of aren't built like the old Chiefs. They're not built to put up a lot of points, and that's exactly what Miami does.
Yeah.
Um, Rice kind of found his groove the last half of the season, but I definitely think they're going to be looking for that. But for Miami,
I think the only way that Kansas City wins is if Isaiah Pacheco has a big game, which
or if
which he is known to do.
or if Taylor Swift doesn't show up.
Yeah, that
Um,
too. She's definitely not going if it's that cold.
yeah, true. It'll be too cold for her. But yeah, I think the players on the Dolphins will come back. I mean, it's playoffs. You kind of got to play if you can. Um, be some big impact players. And I just feel like if yeah, like you said, if they can put up 28 points, it's going to be hard for the Chiefs to put up more than that. So I think the Dolphins do squeak out a tight one because I mean they haven't been playing good against good teams, and that's got to change eventually, right? So we'll
Mhm.
pick them here.
Yeah, moving on to the Sunday games. There's four games on Sunday. We have Pittsburgh
Three
and
games on
Buffalo.
Sunday.
Three, sorry, I said four. My bad. There's Pittsburgh, Buffalo, Green Bay, Dallas, and LA and Detroit. Um, in the first game, I went with my big upset. I have the Steelers beating the Bills. I just think the Bills, I know as of late they've been good, but they've just been too inconsistent for me this season to be confident in them being able to beat a Pittsburgh team. I know Pittsburgh isn't going to have TJ Watt, which is a big loss, but I still think the secondary with players like Minka, uh, and players like that, still think this defense is good enough to make Josh Allen turn the ball over, to make Stephon Diggs work for his catches. And I don't, maybe it's just because I'm not much of a Bills liker, but I just think the Bills have been too inconsistent this year for me to confidently pick them in this game.
Yeah, the Bills are huge favorites. I would definitely, if I was a betting man, I would go on the Pittsburgh. Uh, I wouldn't take the 9.5 points for Buffalo. That just seems like too much in a playoff game. It is in Buffalo, so the crowd's going to be nuts. But like you said, that defense on the Steelers is def. I think they're going to turn them over at least once. Like not having TJ Watt's going to be huge, like you said, but I still feel like they'll be able to turn the ball over. I just don't see if that offense scoring for Pittsburgh. Their defense might steal it, but there might be if they get interceptions, it
Mason
might just
Rudolph
lead to three
legacy game
points.
incoming.
Maybe. I just feel like there's going to be a lot of field goals for the Steelers here. So I do think Buffalo will take it, but I think it's going to be a closer game than people think.
Very fair. Moving on to the next game, we have Brandon's favorite team who squeaked into the playoffs with a win
Oh.
in the final week of the season, taking on the Cowboys. But me and him both have the Cowboys winning. I won't spoil it for Brandon on why he thinks Cowboys will be his team. I just think that the Dallas offense is going to be too much to handle for Green Bay's defense. I know they have players like Jair, Rashawn Gary, Kenny Clark, Preston Smith. They have good players, but I just think this Cowboys offense that when they're clicking, they're too skilled. You know, you got basically three guys. You got number one, obviously top five receiver CD, and then you have two good wide receiver twos and Brandon Cooks, who's more of a deep threat, and then also you have Michael Gallup. I feel like Michael Gallup's best games are always in the playoffs. I know Dallas hasn't won very much, but I feel like Michael Gallup has had good games in the playoffs whenever he has. And then you still have Tony Pollard rushing the ball. Um, I know that Green Bay does have some guys on there. Like they have a really young core. They're the youngest team in the playoffs this year. So I could see the young guys making some noise, but at the same time, they are inexperienced. I think this is really good experience for Green Bay, but I don't have them winning this game.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. I do think again, I think this will be a closer game than people think. If I were to bet the over on one playoff game this weekend, it would be this game. I think it's going to be a super high scoring game.
I believe
Um,
it's the second highest total.
who's the highest?
The
Rams
Rams,
Lions.
Rams,
Yeah.
Lions.
Um, that makes sense. But it's just
It's 50
both
and a half.
these.
The
Yeah,
over-under is
that's
50 and a half.
crazy. Wow. Both these offenses are really good. Like Jordan Love, he has been clicking the second half of the season, like the last 8 games, he's only thrown one interception. He's averaging close to 300 yards. And he's just not making a lot of mistakes, I think. And then Aaron Jones has been back like the last 4 games, and he's been running for over 100 yards a game basically since he's been back. I think the big difference is like you said, the Packers defense. I think the Cowboys have a way better defense than the Packers do. Um, so that's going to be where the difference is. I don't see how the Packers can stop the Cowboys. I feel like they might put up points every single drive. So to keep up with that would be difficult. So I think the Cowboys win a high scoring, and I think CeeDee Lamb might have
CeeDee
more of
Lamb
a
might be the difference in this game,
yeah.
based off how his season has went. Obviously, he did get voted All Pro, along with Tyreek Hill as the two receivers. So, yeah, big play, CD. To the third game is the 8 o'clock game. I think this could be the most interesting game. It might not be the best
100%.
game, but I think it's got like the most buzz or hype around it. Obviously, as Brandon mentioned, the two quarterbacks that did get traded for each other, we have the Rams and the Lions. Obviously, the Lions, the first time in the playoffs since I think 2016, first ever conference win or conference or division win, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong that. I believe that's what I heard. I could be a really fake sports fan if I get that wrong. Um, I took the Rams. I just took experience in this. I took the Rams. Obviously, they're 3 years out from winning a Super Bowl. They have Aaron Donald. Cooper Kupp seems like he's finally going to be healthy. They obviously have Puka. Kyron Williams is great when he's healthy. Um, and I think Detroit is gonna hit the sort of unexperienced team. With that being said, they've been a very fun team to watch, and I think that it could go either way. It's tied for the closest, it's tied for the second closest spread of the week. So obviously people are betting on it to be a close game, but I'm gonna take the side of experience here, and I'm gonna go with the Rams on the road.
Yeah, I just checked. It is the first time they've won the NFC North.
Like amigo.
This is definitely a huge game. I mean, the the Rams have the experience. They were Super Bowl winners. What was it, 2 years ago? Um, like yeah, they have the experience of the playoffs, and they've been hot recently. They got hot to end the season once Matt Stafford came back from injury. It's just a gut feeling. I feel like Detroit's come all this way. It would be such a letdown to the fans if they lost this game. I know it was huge for them just to make the playoffs and win the division, but now that they're here, if they lose this game, it'd be so disappointing. And for all the misery these fans have gone to, I would, even though I'm a division rival, I would hate to see that. So just off of a gut feeling, I feel like they have to win this game.
Yeah, this is that game that I this was the hard probably my hardest pick. Uh,
100%
maybe obviously I took the Steelers over the Bills, but actually looking at it, other than going like a hot take, this was the one I had to think on the most.
for sure.
Moving on to the final wild card game of the week, we have the Eagles and Bucks. Obviously, Bucks winning their last week in a thriller 4 field goal game to the Carolina Panthers, and the Eagles coming in um, sort of in a weird spot. They're 1-5 in their last, and if they played like this to start the year, I don't know if we would really see them in the playoffs. I know we have different picks on this. I still took the Eagles. I'm going on the side. I think they're too good to keep playing as bad as they are. I know they're banged up. AJ Brown has not practiced this week. Obviously, that would be a huge loss if he does not play. But I think Devontae Smith could carry the weight. Swift has been good. We know what their defense is. I don't know. I think Darius Slay's out, but I still think their defense, their line is good enough. The Bucks don't have the best offensive line. But with that being said, I'm going with the Eagles just based on the fact I think they're too good based off how bad they've been playing.
Yeah, this was another toss up for me. I was going back and forth, but ultimately, I think just the home team won out for me. I feel like the Eagles are just too injured. Like at the time of recording, AJ Brown hasn't practiced. Jalen Hurts he's gonna play, but he's dealing with an injury himself on his hand. I don't know if it's his throwing hand
I
or if
don't
it's all.
think it is.
Okay, well that's huge then.
It was a dislocated finger on his left finger, on his left
Well,
hand.
that's definitely a lot better news. Um, another thing, like the injuries go both ways. I know Baker Mayfield had an ankle injury at the end of last week in the game, and it still seems like it's bothering him. So it seems like both quarterbacks are going to come a little banged up, but I don't know. Yeah, the Eagles have just the Eagles are just too injured for me, and the Bucks have come off strong. They they didn't look good against the Panthers in Week 18, but they still got the job done. They clinched the division, and I think even without Tom Brady, these guys can win one playoff game.
Yeah. So that's it for the wild card. I don't think we'll go into our complete bracket. Obviously, if you want to see our complete bracket, we'll talk about probably next week if we find time to record. Obviously, we have our tournament next week that Brandon's putting a lot of effort into.
And
And
no,
worry about. So if we find time to record, we will record. Maybe we'll do a live recording at the Deep River Arena. Um, we'll go into depth sort of on our next one. If we get it right, obviously we're gonna go through them even if we get it wrong. But if you want to see our full bracket, go check out our Instagram. The link is in the description. Before we talk some hockey, we'll quickly jump into some teams that sort of fired their head coach. So there's 25% of the NFL needs a new head coach, which I thought was a very interesting stat. There was 8 teams, but this morning the Patriots did not waste any time and they hired Gerard Mayo, which I think he was their offensive coordinator. Um,
it was something. It
he
wasn't
was
their offensive coordinator, but he was something. He was
anyways,
good.
so it didn't take them long, obviously, to get a new one after Belichick did get relieved of his duties. Um, First off, were you surprised that Belichick was relieved?
I kind of was, even with the negative record. I mean, I don't think it was his fault. Like, it's, I mean, it's hard to give him all the credit with seeing how they did after Tom Brady left, but I mean, like Mac Jones is, they just don't have a quarterback right now. Um, they have a top end pick. I feel like they're gonna probably take a quarterback.
I think they
Um,
have three. They have number 3 overall.
and if they take a quarterback, I would like to see if Bill Belichick can coach that guy into a winner. So I am kind of surprised. Um, they did just go from the oldest head coach to the youngest head coach in
Very
the
true.
league. So we'll see how that goes. Maybe he'll have a better understanding of a young quarterback if that's the direction they're looking in the draft. And but yeah, it did actually surprise me, even though there's been rumors the past like 2 years.
Yeah, and then also, do you think Belichick gets another job?
I don't. I mean, actually, you know what? I didn't. I will be on. We talked about this earlier. I didn't, and then I searched up, and he's only 15 wins away from
It's
the
15
all-time.
including playoffs.
Okay.
So, because he has 300 wins regular season, but then he's 15 away. It's like the all-time wins is including playoff wins.
Yeah, so I didn't think he was gonna, and then after reading that, I think he will probably just beat the record and then say goodbye. Um, if he can go to a borderline playoff team, he can get that done in 2 years maybe, and call her quits after that. So I didn't, but now I think he will.
So there's 7 teams still that need a quarterback. Out of the 7 teams, you have Chargers, you have the Raiders, you have Panthers, you have Seattle, Atlanta, and Tennessee. Which one makes the most sense to you?
I know the Falcons are rumored to be the favorite. I just think the quarterback situation, I don't know if this hurts your feelings or not, but isn't that much better than Mac Jones. I think it could be,
I agree.
but at this current point, I think like the Falcons could be looking for a quarterback as well. Um,
I think the Falcons need a quarterback. I don't see me going. I know this is talking about the NFL draft,
yeah,
but
yeah.
picking at 8, I don't see a quarterback at 8 that if you hire Belichick makes you a Super Bowl competitor in the next 2 years. Like, it's another thing why I don't want the Falcons to hire Belichick is because I think that it's not really looking into the future. Like, you're gonna have Belichick for, like you said, 2, 3 seasons, and then you don't really have a successor to him. Where the Patriots, they had a successor. This Mayo guy sat behind him. They went in. I think that if you bring Belichick into a completely new system, they don't have a successor for him 2 years down the line. And with that being said, at 8, I think the top 3 quarterbacks are going to be off the board. And I don't think the fourth quarterback, where it's like a Michael Penix who just lost a Natty championship, or like a Bo Nix from Oregon, I don't think that they can sort of have a coach like Belichick where he needs to be able to develop them. Um, with that being said, I know the Falcons have also been rumored at Kirk Cousins, who's a free agent, and Russell Wilson, who is most likely going to get cut by the Broncos. If one of those two signs, I could totally see the Falcons going and getting Belichick, or if that's their vision. Maybe they still draft a guy at 8, and if they get a guy like Kirk Cousins or Russell Wilson, they sign him for a 2-year deal. Let this guy, sort of like an Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love situation, let this guy sit behind but even if that does happen, as a Falcons fan, I don't want them to hire Belichick.
No, that makes sense. It's kind of the point I was going off on. Like, I feel like we saw it with Mac Jones. I think Belichick's just the, it sounds funny, but I think the age gap is just too far where he can't connect with a young quarterback as well, which is why I think if I were to pick a favorite, I would go Seattle. One, they're competitive. They were battling for the last playoff spot
They were
this
one
year.
win, one game out.
Yeah, last year they got in, and they have an older quarterback in Geno, and I think that that relationship can be a lot more open and honest than with a young quarterback because you got to kind of baby them into the league, right? And I don't think Belichick's good at that. So I think him and Geno could be a good fit. So I think Seattle would be a good fit. But yeah, I agree with you. I don't think Atlanta's the great fit if they go quarterback, unless they pick up like you said, a Russell Wilson or Kirk Cousins. But Kirk Cousins did come out and say he would take a huge pay cut to stay
Yeah,
with
yeah, no,
the
I'm
Minnesota.
just saying that I know that Falcons have been rumored to be going to go after Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, for sure.
Granted that they do have a competitive team, they are missing that quarterback, obviously. The other big name that sort of, or I guess Pete Carroll was fired, but he stayed in he's staying in the organization of Seattle. The other one that was sort of surprising is Mike Vrabel in Tennessee.
Mhm.
2 years out of Coach of the Year. Obviously the Titans did not have a good year. Where do you see Mike Vrabel going? If he is a head coach, if he takes a coordinator job, where do you think he lands? Do you think he gets another job?
I do, and I know the record hasn't been great, but I do think Mike Vrabel's a very good coach. I think he sticks up for his team. I think he's a hard coach, but I do think he like no matter what Tennessee's record has been the last couple of years, they're always a tough win. You can never go out there and expect them.
They ruined
That's
Jacksonville's
what
chance of making
exactly.
the playoffs whenever winning a game. They weren't tanking. I feel like Vrabel had them wired differently.
Exactly. This team doesn't go down easy, which is why I think the team I have him going to is a perfect fit because this team does go down easy at times, and I think he could really change that around. I think he would be a perfect fit with the Chargers. This
I
team
like that.
cannot win close games. Um, they're sometimes like if games don't start great for them, you don't see him climb back. I think this would be a perfect fit. He can wake this team up because they got all the talent in the world and just can't find a way to win for some reason. I think he could definitely change that.
For sure. I think this is sort of like the big names. I know the Raiders have an opening, but I know a lot of players want them to sign that guy that they're interim, which I think honestly that will happen. You just named the Chargers, obviously the Patriots already filled theirs out, and then what's the other team? I just had it on
Washington, Carolina.
Washington, Carolina. Those teams are both rebuilding. I don't really. I think Ben Johnson, Detroit's offensive coordinator, I think he gets a head coaching job. I
Mhm.
don't know where, but I think he does. And then
What about Ron Rivera?
I think he's sort of done as a head coach. I think I could see him going into an advisor role, like a senior advisor of a team, assistant GM. But I sort of think that he's sort of at the end of like with Belichick and Pete Carroll, where he's sort of done his coach, or I think he should be done his coaching and sort of to try to help out the teams in a different way. But I don't know where he goes, to be honest. I'm not
But I agree.
speaking. This is not MLB or NFL news, but Jordan Hicks just signed with the Giants.
No, really.
Mhm. Anyways, so we have a bit of time left. Let's jump into some NHL news. Something I want to talk about is sort of trade deadline. Couple players that names have come up. I know the trade deadline is still for like a month and a half. And then I also want your opinion on like right now, who would be your heart favorites?
Okay. Uh,
A couple names that have been on the trade block. Obviously, a bunch of Flames players are on there, and I know Jacob Markstrom has just been rumored to be a target. I know that there's been a couple teams that need goalies, but one of them I think that could happen. I think Jacob Markstrom could be a Maple Leaf. I don't know if you like that, but I could see it.
I could see it too, but I really hope not. I don't know. I feel like you gotta trust that Samsonov's gonna be better than the worst goalie in the NHL. Wall will be coming back, and Martin Jones hasn't looked terrible. So I feel like you gotta just hope and pray. You gotta ride those ones,
A
ride those
couple
three.
more teams that are sort of listed are the Devils and the Hurricanes. Obviously, both are I've had goalie issues this year and are like having not having like down years, but like having disappointing years where the Devils are currently outside the playoffs, Hurricanes are barely in a playoff spot. Do either of those teams sort of make sense to you?
The Devils do. I think Carolina. I think Kochetkov has really picked it up in his last like 8 games or something, or nine
He got
games.
hurt. He left yesterday's game with an injury
Did he?
last
Shoot, I
night.
missed that. Okay, well that changes everything now. That makes it a good fit. But before I was gonna say Kochetkov has um found his game again, and you might have to just go with that. But I do think this Devils team has to make the playoffs. So all the talent they had and the year they had last year, they have to make the playoffs. And Vanacek hasn't been it. Um, Schmidt hasn't had the season you'd hope after kind of his end of the season in playoffs last year. He's been bouncing back between NHL and AHL. So yeah, I think the Devils are a good fit for
Yeah,
him for
definitely.
sure.
Obviously John Gibson's name is going to be out there. Um, I think the Ducks have to eat a lot of his salary, almost up to 50%. 50% obviously is the max you can take. But
Yeah.
I think it's time that they go with this with Dostal. I know he has been playing really good. I don't know, like another name could be Carolina, could be the Devils. I know obviously you don't like it, but Toronto has been rumored to at least talk to the Ducks about him. Do you think they get rid of him by the deadline?
I think it's going to be super difficult, but I do
I
think
know like me and you talked about it yesterday, and we've said this for the last three deadlines or three summers, just the last 3 years. Like John Gibson's name has been in trade talks the whole time.
yeah, he's always in trade deadline talks, and it hasn't gotten through just because of his salary. And if they are willing to, I think that could happen. A good fit. I don't think John Gibson is a like the trade bait like Markstrom would be, where I think top teams like we're talking the Hurricanes, the Devils, they'd be looking at a Markstrom. Where I think John Gibson, like a good team, I could see like Detroit, a team that's battling for the playoffs who could really use a goalie.
Yeah, Detroit.
Um,
We were talking about it last night, but there's three teams right now. The Devils, my Penguins, and Detroit are all 3 points, 2 points out of the last wild card spot that's held by Tampa. And then you have teams like Washington, who is 3 points back. So there's a lot of teams fighting for spots right now.
Yeah, and I feel like one of those teams could do it. Like I'm just looking at the West, and I don't think any of the teams make sense to me. Like the Predators don't make sense, the Blues don't make sense, the Coyotes could make sense. Um, and then some other fringe teams like the Kraken, the Flames, they don't really make sense either. So I think we got to go out east if a trade's going to happen. I think the Red Wings make a lot of sense. Even like the Capitals could make sense if they're really trying to make a push.
If they really don't trust Grubauer or
Exactly. And then
Kemper.
even a
Not
team
Grubauer.
like Montreal, I know they're kind of sliding recently, but they still are in the hunt depending on if they want to be competitive or not. They can make a move, but I think Detroit makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and just sort of to end it off, I know it's been a kind of weird year. Obviously, McDavid's always a favorite for the heart. But right now, um, I'll do mine after, but give me your five heart so whenever voters fill out a ballot, they have five names they can put on the card. Fifth, fourth, third, second, obviously first. Who are the five names right now you're putting on that ballot?
Damn, that's tough. I don't know if I can go in order, but I'm definitely you got to go Kucherov. He's keeping this team afloat. Like he's destroying the NHL right now, and he's a big reason why Tampa Bay's still fighting for a playoff spot. I think again, I'm not going in order. I think you have to go Matthews just because of the sheer goal scoring he's been putting up this year. It's been he's on pace for a crazy amount of goals, and I think that just has to be acknowledged. Um, Other than that, I think again another one is you don't see this very often, but I would have Connor Hellebuck. He's arguably, well, I would say the best goalie in the NHL this year, definitely front runner for the Vezina in my opinion. And I had this team not making the playoffs, and they're currently the first place team in the NHL. So um, he's killing it. Um, Defensive wise, I think um, Quinn Hughes makes a lot of sense. He's leading the NHL in plus minus. This Vancouver team is second in the NHL. They've taken a big boost. I know they didn't make playoffs this year. You and me had them as fringe playoff teams, and they're definitely looking a lot bigger than that. I know two podcasts ago we said that we were expecting a little dip from Vancouver, and that did not happen. So I'd put him in there too. And then my last one, um, I think would be between. Oh, I don't know. That's tough. I think I would go. Um, Jeez, that's tough. I think I'd go Nathan McKinnon just because again the points is there, but also with a injured Colorado team, they're still fourth in the NHL, and he's a big reason for that. So I think that's my five: Kucherov, McKinnon, Matthews, Hughes, and um, Hellebuck.
Yeah, I agree. I have Kucherov, McKinnon, Matthews, and I had Quinn Hughes. My fifth. This is going to sound very biased. I think Sidney Crosby has to be on that list. If you're talking
Fair enough.
about, I know I'm going to sound like a really biased Penguins fan. If you're
No,
talking
go
about
off.
players, if you're talking about players that are most valuable to their team, I don't think this Penguins team is even sniffing a playoff, not even playoff spot, playoff push or playoffs, whatever, playoff conversation without
Yep.
Sidney Crosby. He has taken the most faceoffs this year, has the highest winning percentage, and he is he is 90% of the time the Penguins win, he has at least 1 point. I know he isn't putting up points like he's tied for 24th in points. He only has 43 points compared to Kucherov, McKinnon, who are almost at 70. But if we're talking about valuable to their team, I think you gotta have Crosby as in your top five.
No, it's a good point because a lot of people, when they make their predictions, they just look at the point leaders, and there's a different award for that. Like
That's
this
yeah.
isn't the point leader award. This is the most valuable to your team award.
And then
You definitely
another
made a good
stat
case.
that the Penguins are the highest, or I forget what it was. It was like the highest goals for expected when Crosby's on the ice. I don't know. It's just me giving my little thing where we can't really we're taking a 36-year-old um player who's probably playing the best hockey of his career for granted whenever he just because he's not putting up elite points like he used to. But if you're talking, I think Sidney Crosby has been the most complete player in the league this year.
No, you make a good point, and I like just looking at his stats. He plays 20 minutes a night on a team that's um just above 500. He's still top 20 in plus minus. Like you said, he takes all the defensive faceoffs, all the high pressure faceoffs. Um, he's still above a point a game player. He's more than a half a goal a game player. Like he's going to get 40 some goals this year if he stays on this pace. Like it's and he is
And for the first time in his career, he has he's on pace to score more goals than assists in a season, which I know we've always thought about Crosby as being like a really good passer, but I just think that's even showing more of the point on how valuable he is, where he is at the point of his career where he has to score goals for this team to win.
exactly. No, I could definitely see it. Definitely
Anyways,
agree
that's
with
just me
you
throwing in my
there.
Penguins bias
I
for the
won't
bit. But yeah, I
disagree.
think we'll wrap it up there. If you guys enjoy, make sure you leave a like and subscribe. We will try to get one out next week. I know me and Brandon do have a bit of spare time throughout the week because our course load this semester is not very big. So I'd like to say we'll get one out.
Oh yeah, we'll get
And we have the Valley Sports Talk hockey tournament, which should be fun. So
a week today, a week tomorrow, a week today.
week today. We will see you guys next week.
Peace out.